Welcome to Conversations with Captain Sandy and my very dear friend Randi Gold, who we have had a wonderful journey for over 10 years together in friendship and in recovery. And Randi and I did a live show not too long ago, about a year ago, here in Denver. And we talked about I came from the bottom and Randi came from the top of her career, and I had no career, and how addiction can take it all away from you. So we talked about meeting in the middle, which was really cool. And I just wanted listeners to know that there is a solution. And I wanted Randi to share her story because I think for executives and CEOs of companies who also struggle with addiction could learn a lot from Randi Gold. So please welcome my dear friend, Randi Gold.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy, and thank you for everyone that's listening who is either sick and suffering or struggling or certainly knows somebody that is sick and suffering. And, Sandy and I know each other through recovery, through the blessing of recovery. And, we always struggled, I think, in, some of the shame of it because, there's with our stories, there's certainly, although they meet in different levels, anybody who struggled with addiction usually has some sort of shame. And, when I met Sandy in recovery, it was amazing because I had what I thought was everything and I lost everything. So, it's been a blessing. I think one of the things that for me that I learned early on, Sandy, as you know, is, there's three things I take away. It's for me, it was about the pain, allow pain to visit, allow it to teach you something, but don't allow it to overstay. And, as a child, I had a lot of trauma that was undealt with. I lost 6 of the most important people in my life before I was 20 years old, whether it was death, divorce, addiction, whatever it was. And I was also sexually abused. So I didn't know how to trust anyone. I didn't really have faith in anyone. And so I was kind of lost. I did have a wonderful mom, and she passed away at a very, very young age. And, I made the mistake of listening to her say, Randi, I will never leave you. And I held on to those words. So when she passed away suddenly of a brain aneurysm, I really thought I was cursed. I thought that, how could that happen? And why did this happen? And why is everybody leaving that I love? And, so at 20 years old, I was just lost. And at 20, if you're 20 and you're listening and you look at your friends, maybe it's different now, but back then it was, if they asked if I was okay, I was, and if I had a sad face on, I wasn't okay. I wasn't accepted. Because they don't know how to deal at 20, right? So I learned to not tell the truth, unfortunately, because if I said I was okay, then I was accepted in the group. So I began to learn early on that, people please and say what people want to hear and you'll be accepted. But that was just a really bad mistake. And so, I struggled with that. But what I did find early on was alcohol. And at these parties when you're younger, alcohol was present, right, Sam? So, if I had a drink, I felt a little more like it took and for a minute there, or even more than a minute, the pain of loss left. And that is where I believe my addiction started. I believe that my dependency for being accepted, my dependency for something that would make me feel good that's outside of myself began when I put the chemical in my body to calm me down. And instead of seeking therapy or understanding, the power of AA or what a sponsor was, I did the best I could. So, but I did as you know, always want to be a sports anchor. So I had this dream of being like Robin Roberts before Robin Roberts was, even great. And so I love sports. I grew up like a, tomboy, twin brother, my older brother. And so I was fascinated with news and sports. And so I figured if that was another thing, if I could one day be a sports person or a sports anchor or something in news and something big and famous, that all the pain would go away, right? So I pursued that dream, actually, hiding the alcohol and, making some new friends because my friends that I had grown up with didn't have a deal. And eventually I lost them, along the way of my disease. I lost people because people don't know how to deal with addiction. And I kept my work life separate from my personal life. So I was able to hide the addiction, which a lot of people can relate to, until I couldn't. So for 20 years, I spent, 11 of those 20 some odd years or more diving into the field of television, starting from the bottom, learning research, learning ratings, learning everywhere to get to the top, 11 promotions in 18 years and blah, 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 like the ego, everything felt good that way. And I was onto something and, I got into, being in television and that was great. But I remember at the peak of the height of my success, career-wise, was being one of the youngest female general managers in the country at a broadcast station. And I don't say that lightly because that is something that even today, 12 years sober, I will always be proud of.
And you worked hard. It wasn't like even through all of that you were going through, you worked hard to get to where you are.
Yeah.
So your work ethic was always there.
Always.
Yes.
Always. I mean, that is the thing. I was a weekend warrior. I was like, work. And then the problem is when I had free time, which most normies would take that time to do something fun, I was in my head about the pain. I could literally hear my mom seizing from the brain aneurysm anytime I wasn't sober, saying, "Randy, help me," because those were her final words. Unfortunately, those are the last words I heard her say. And so that guilt of not being able to help her, I'm not God, but back then I thought I could, stayed with me when I wasn't drinking. So the work was great. The work. You're right. And thank you for saying that because, me, I'm not good at doing that for myself. But I did work very hard and I did, quote, make it to the top of what I thought was the top of the executive level of a broadcast station. And my family did warn me that, this may catch up to you, your pain and all of this if you don't deal with it. And but I remember reading the cover of a big news article, in the Boston Globe, citing that I was, this youngest female GM in the country, and it was a wonderful accolade to have. And I got the Boston Globe. I brought it back to my roommate. I read it, and I thought, why is the pain still there? Like, why? I made it. I made it where I wanted to go, but why is the pain still there? And then I knew I was in trouble. I probably should have known along the way. There's many things I don't need to get into because my journey was
the road signs.
Yeah. Hiding it from work was not because I was trying to deceive anyone, but because I was very proud of my job and didn't want to hurt anybody else. But the pain didn't go away. So I knew I was going to have to keep medicating. And unfortunately, here's where we talk about making it, to the top, right? To where I needed to be. I worked all the way up, made it there. I was, very young to be in that position. I think I was 38 at the time when I was all the way at the top. And that is when, unfortunately, I was, God did for me what I could not do for myself. I got off a plane in Boston and Logan Airport, and I was not in a good space. I had been crying. I think I told people on the plane my mom had just died. It sounds insane to anybody that's listening. And I do worry about, telling it all over because I don't want the people, but it is the truth. It's what is in the frontal cortex of my brain was that pain that just was still there. even though it happened now.
Randy, millions of people are going through the same
Yeah.
thing, just different scenarios. So you're sharing this story is going to help a lot of people
Yeah.
because your path from climbing and working hard to get to the top while having your addiction and then being slammed on the ground because as we know, it's, you know, it's not it knows no bounds. It's not racist. It doesn't,
Oh,
you know, like addiction grabs anyone.
yeah. And I did, my family did try to, along the way, because I did see them in my personal life, that the little family I'd left, and, now I have millions more because of, recovery and your chosen family and so forth. But, I just, they tried to warn me that this would catch up to me. And coming out of Logan Airport, I was not in a good space. And I just remember seeing these state troopers. And I had, it was after 9/11. And I thought, I saw them waiting for me. And I'm little 5'4", 110 pounds. And they're like, can you please come with me? And I'm like, no, no, I think I'm good. I had that revelation that something must have happened because I was a blackout drinker. Something happened in this blackout this time that was not going to let me off the hook. So I just was like, no, and going. And you really can't do that to these wonderful
At an
in an
airport
airport
after
after
September
September
11th.
11th, and with these wonderful state troopers that are just trying to do their job. And they proceeded to say, you do need to come with me because something happened. And in that feeling of I'm about to lose everything because something must have happened, as they placed their hand on me, little me, I don't know if I thought I was like jujitsu, but I did something. I broke the state trooper's glasses, and I wrote, believe me, I asked for forgiveness, and I apologized to them publicly. They were just trying to help me. Do you know, in the end, they were concerned about me. My head was in such a bad space that I thought
Plus, you were
I was
intoxicated.
intoxicated. So they were trying to help me. And because I, did some jujitsu move, I was then arrested. And, I broke the glass, and I was arrested, and it was horrible. It was horrible. And it, of course, I dreamed of making it to the top of a wonderful news organization and not being the lead story, but making everybody in the community the lead story, what we did, and these wonderful people that I work with in this wonderful organization. And instead, I became the lead story, that literally seconds after it, because people love to bring you up. And then in the industry that we're in, they love to see it, unfortunately, go down if they don't understand recovery or they're not spiritual in any way. So I say this to say that God did for me what I could not do for myself. It was only going to happen. My recovery was only going to happen if I was publicly humiliated and shamed. And the sad part is, because I thought I had everything, because I had that big job and I made it everything. I didn't put God first. I made the job, the career, the money, everything. I really believed that now I had lost it, so I had no reason to live. And I will say this, that I was so humiliated publicly, and I was only trying to hurt myself, but I could not find a reason to live. So I did find my roommate's pills, and I did find the alcohol in the apartment, and I did try to not be here anymore. I did not want to be here anymore, and that is a sad moment, that feeling of despair, of it was the worst feeling in the world. And I didn't expect to wake up, and I woke up in Mass General Hospital on all these tubes. And, I thought to myself, why am I even here? But God decided, your story, hopefully, if you do the next right thing, and you come back and start believing you can live some kind of a life. He just, that was a moment of hope. Now, I will say that it wasn't easy after that, as you know, Sandy. I mean, I was in hiding. I mean, wherever I went, it was shameful. Was able to move back to Florida, and I was able to get a job and stay sober for a little while, but I didn't work a program. I just said, I can do this. And then for some reason, a press article came out again. They found me, and the article read something like, we found the drunk, blah blah blah, and I couldn't take it again. I thought, like, I don't understand why they're writing about me. I'm a nobody. I'm just trying to stay sober, but I wasn't working the program. So the embarrassment again was an excuse for me to do what I knew how to do best: try to numb the pain again. So that's what I did. And so I spent the next 3 years getting arrested 3 times in 3 years, including Boston. And I say that to say I'm allergic to alcohol, and I break out in handcuffs because although it's funny, it's one of the reasons I stay sober. I mean, God has decided, I'll keep you alive, but I'm going to keep embarrassing you. So it took me a little bit, right? It took me a little bit. And then I had nothing, really, truly had nothing. I knew I needed to stay alive, but I had no money. I was spiritually, physically, mentally broke. My family said, we're done. We've tried to be there for you. My twin brother said, Randy, I can't watch you die. I can't do this. And, that I talk about powerful words, like Randy help me was these words that stayed in my head. And Jeffrey said, you will die. Those 3 words stayed in my head. And I thought, I don't want to die. So it propelled me to get on my hands and knees and call Hanley Center and the women's unit at Hanley in Palm Beach and beg them to take me in and work. I worked something out with them at the time. I was willing to do whatever it took to get sober. And January 25th, 2011 is when I got sober. And I checked into rehab, and I had a great counselor. I shared a little room that, used to be, remember, a big job, you have big things, right? Now I have nothing, a little room sharing a tiny space, like a little kitchen space with 3 young women who were so in such bad shape. And, this nurturing part of me started in there. I felt like I needed to take care of them. I have to step up. And all of a sudden I became like a little bit of a coach there. And I wanted to do great. I wanted to learn, because they teach you only up to the.
Because you're in leadership.
Yeah.
When you're in leadership, you want to lead.
You want to lead, but I didn't.
You're a natural born leader.
Yeah. And I needed the tools, right? So they taught us the first 3 steps. And then I was scared to go in, but when I was ready to leave, I didn't want to leave. And I'm still friends with these girls to this day, and all of them stayed sober, by the way.
So Randy, I have a question for you. When you were climbing your ladder and you had dreams and hopes, and then the pain of your mother's death, and you never really, you didn't accept it. And so you chose, we started using, I don't know if it's a choice or not, but you started to use and to numb the pain. How would you describe what alcohol, drugs did for you? And then after it wore off, what did you face?
Thank you for that question. Because it's so important, because we all have our reasons, right? So what the alcohol, and eventually, you're right, eventually for me, the alcohol did lead to other things. It was a gateway to anything and everything outside of myself that I thought I could bring into my body to make the pain go away. So what it did for me was immediately, the very first drink, or the very, it was like wait a second, I can pretend. I became the great pretender. It was like, like I was able to, I'm great. You good? Good. It was like, and I felt like, wow, I can fake this. I can tell everybody I'm good. And I was a happy drunk for a while, right? It didn't last forever, but it worked. The alcohol, the feeling of being invincible, and it was able to just make me forget a little bit, or at least not think about the pain, but pretend I was okay. It sort of, it numbed the ultimate wound. And because it's only a numbing agent, you know, and it made me feel a certain way, it only was going to last a little bit of a time. So my problem was that I was chasing that very first numb pretender feeling. And then I said, oh, I found another way to get it again. Have a little bit more. Have a little bit more. Oh, and maybe I'll try that drug or whatever it was. I'll try anything, because a little bit more seemed to help me out for an extended period of time. Right. So then it became a lot more. And unfortunately, finding other drugs that extend the time life of that didn't serve me. I mean, I thought it served me at the time, but it extended the many years of abuse to my body. What did it feel like when I came down from it? Horrible. Horrible, because two things happened. Either I blacked out and couldn't remember anything, and was wondering when I woke up, like, okay, like, you know, if I was in like a house in the Hamptons with my friends, or I was somewhere, and when I was young, you know, not knowing what went on, and I was sort of getting these looks in the morning, like from people that you're sharing some space with, or family. And I remember feeling, oh my God, like, I need a drink. Like, I must have done something, and no one's saying anything. That feeling, until somebody finally tells you. But, you know, I started to lose people that, you know, too, because, you know, it was just too many. And then how did it feel when I had a physical bruise from it? Sometimes I fell down and I didn't remember falling down, whether it was on my way to the bathroom at night, and I would wake up with these bruises. So it felt terrible. But I went back again when I needed to. Not obviously, you know, or I went back on the weekend because the forgetter button happened. Yeah.
I like the forgetter button.
Oh my God, that forgetter button caused me a lot of problems. So, you know, the alcohol is a depressant, and why it took me up and it took me down. And so, you know, that really is how it made me feel. I mean, it was
and it took you all the way down, all the way
down
everything.
to, yes, I did. I lost everything. I lost everything.
Yeah. So we're running out of time. There's going to be a part 2 to this. And I want to thank my friend Randi Gold very much. Please stay tuned, or tune back in, however we word that, for the second part of Randi's trajectory, which is from the bottom back to the top. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing's gonna hold me down.